Wait, guys, that's a great image of what real manhood is. Real manhood is when a man walks into a room or walks into his home or spends time with his friends. There is energy flowing out of him that's encouraging others, moving others in a positive direction, building them up, encouraging them, giving them life. The manhood that sucks life out of people is no manhood at all. That's being a boy. Boys take. Men give life. Now I want to play that out practically just for a moment, because these two masculine identities, I think, play out practically. I'm going to use some terms just to add to that promise I made to you at the first of the year that we're going to have a manhood language. Because I think Adam's manhood becomes what I call conventional manhood. Remember that term, conventional manhood, because conventional manhood is a manhood that's promoted to men in every generation. In fact, as we go down the list, you'll go, that's the manhood that America promotes. But that's the manhood that, England promoted 100 years ago. Or we could go back into the Dark Ages. They promoted 500 years ago. Or we could go to Greece in 200 BC, or to Assyria in 500 BC. It's the same manhood in every generation. It's the manhood of Adam. It's conventional manhood. And what does it focus on? These things. What a man does. Competition with other men. Temporal power. Personal rewards. Self. And you could put self in capital letters. And success. These are all the characteristics of conventional manhood. And conventional manhood is a kind of manhood that when men embrace it, it works for a while. But usually, and in kind of the life cycle of men that we'll talk about later in men's fraternity, usually about 40 or 45, this manhood begins to burn out. Suddenly I'm saturated with self, but it's left debris in my wake. I'm a success, but I don't feel good about me. Why? I've competed with men, and I've wounded a lot of people in the process. My whole life was to win. And before I knew it, it was winning at all cost. And after enough cost, now it's costing me. And so somewhere along the line, you hit this wall and you go, okay, this is the manhood I bought into. But now I'm not satisfied with it, and I don't know what to do. And a lot of men find themselves at that place. Jesus Christ offered a different kind of manhood. I'm going to call it authentic manhood, because we're on the quest for authentic manhood. And I want you to know what it focuses on. It doesn't totally throw out the conventional side. It's where the focus is. More than what a man does, the authentic manhood focuses on what a man is. Focuses on character, his integrity, his good name, so to speak. It's what he carries within inside him, the values that he embodies. That becomes important. That's what carries him the distance. Not just what he does, what he is. And Jesus reflects that manhood to all humanity. It's a manhood that focuses on community with other men. Competing is part of life, but competing is not to be the focus of life. Community is to be the focus. It focuses on transcendent purpose, not just temporal power. It focuses on eternal rewards, not just personal rewards. If all there is personal rewards, that is such a self-saturated life. There's got to be something higher than me. And certainly there is, and Jesus declared that more than any other. More than self, it's a manhood that focuses on others. And more than success, it focuses on what's significant. In 1 Corinthians, as well as the Bible, Old and New Testament, as well as these Adams, first Adam and second Adam, Basically, this is what the Bible declares on masculinity. Here's a summary. I've set before you two manhoods. That's what it declares. The manhood of Adam and the manhood of Jesus. The manhood of darkness and the manhood of life. The manhood of death and the manhood of life. You choose. But every man will finish his life in the light or the shadow of one of these two men. Because all men are comprehended in them. Now here's what I want you to know. If we took these two Adams, and this is what we're going to do at the last part of this morning and next week, and we took these two men and we pressed them together, like I said last week, 4 defining definitions fall out. Four defining components will fall out. And they will make up our definition of manhood. And I'm going to give you the first here this morning. We're only going to look at the first. And then the remaining 3 I'll give next week. But when you press these guys together, here's the first defining difference. The first Adam, it says, fell into passivity. The second Adam, that is Christ, rejected that passivity. The first Adam, guys, in the moment of his fall, he reeked of passivity. We know that, as I've said, that God set before this Adam 3 things to do, 3 specific responsibilities: a will to obey, a work to do, and a woman to love and care for. And yet, in the events of Genesis 3, when we got to that tight focused moment, where's Adam? Where is he? Here's what Genesis 3 says in this moment. It says, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise, she took from its fruit and ate, and she gave also to her husband with her, and he ate. You know, a lot of people think of the Genesis story as the woman over there all by herself entertaining this temptation with the enemy alone. And her husband's off somewhere, totally out of sight, doing what he needs to do, but having left her alone, and that's how the sin took place. That's not how the sin took place. This tells us how the sin took place. Adam was there. He was watching the whole event transpire. And when the woman had been thoroughly deceived and seduced, he, being there with her, also took and ate. Now here's the point. The thing that jumps out in this passage is that rather than doing what masculinity does, true masculinity, which is do something, Adam is standing there. He just went flat. He went passive. He didn't do anything. That's the problem. It's what we see happening in homes all across America. Rather than men doing something, they're just standing there. Rather than being involved the way they should with their children, they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything necessarily wrong. They're just standing there. It's a passivity that just sweeps over men in every generation. In fact, Yale sociologist Stephen Clark made this observation as he looked at humanity through time. He said this: for whatever reason, men have a natural tendency to avoid social responsibility. And I thought, natural tendency. Where'd they get that? It comes from the shadow of the first Adam. Men have a natural tendency to wait in regards to significant social and spiritual things. They can't find whatever it is within the energy to move forward and to seize direction, both spiritually and socially, in the most critical of settings. Had one guy, after a talk like this, come down to me. He was a very successful man. He said, I'm Adam in spades. I said, what do you mean? He said, I've made a great living for my family. But when it comes to social and spiritual involvement in my family, all I've done for a generation is just stand there. Just hang around. Watch the TV. Go play some golf. And hang. But in doing that, he hung his family. The first Adam fell into passivity and created this inaction and inertia, I think, in every man to some degree. But the second man, Jesus Christ, rejected passivity. In fact, you see more real manhood in the manger of Jesus Christ at Christmas than you do in Adam in the garden. Look at Philippians 2. Here's what it says. This is speaking of Jesus in heaven before He became incarnate and then coming to earth. It says, although He existed in the form of God, He did not regard equality with God. The very thing that Adam wanted, equality with God, Jesus did not regard that equality with God a thing to be grasped. But He emptied it, taking the form of a bondservant and being made in the likeness of men. And being found in the appearance as a man, He humbled Himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. In other words, and let me explain, think of a moment in heaven, and God is saying, as He watches a lost and fallen world disconnected with God entirely, God asks the question, the Father, who will stand up for humanity? Who will stand up for the human race? And we saw that the first Adam showed us what he would do. He couldn't even stand up for his wife. But in this moment, Jesus, equal with God, in that regal setting where He had all the rights and privileges of God because He was God, He said, I'll do something about it. And that's the essence of humanity. He said, I'll accept responsibility for it. I'll step forward. And in that instant, suddenly, He was in a manger. And what I want you to see is when you look at Adam in the garden, he looks like a man, but he's really a boy. And when you look in the manger of Jesus Christ, He looks like a baby, but He's the essence of manhood. And the reason for that is because He was willing to step forward. And guys, here's what I want you to know. That's what men do. They come through. Real manhood is not hanging out in a self-centered passivity. Real manhood is not waiting for mama or my wife or my society to tell me what to do. Real manhood is rejecting that passivity and saying, I'll do it. I'll step forward. I'll accept responsibility. And in giving my life for others and in watching that life spread into my wife, into my girlfriend, into my family, into my community, and into my church, and into the world. That's real manhood. It's becoming like Jesus, a life-giving Spirit. So, this is just the first. We've pressed these two men together just for a moment, and we've asked the question, what is a man? And what is spilled out is the first of four very important components. Real manhood. Real men reject social and spiritual passivity. Think about it. And then next week, we'll talk about the last three.